Now it's my pleasure to introduce to you our Rotary International President's representative, and we are so fortunate to have her. She has been amazing. She and her husband, Michael, are they've become wonderful friends, I believe, to all of us in this area. Let me introduce to you Tammy Babb. Please come and join me. Tammy doesn't like long introductions. And that's great because I don't like to give long introductions. She's wonderful. She was district governor in 2009, 2010. Just a little couple fun facts about her is she is a physician, not a demanding job at all. She's active in Rotary. She and her husband have 8 children combined, and she has 11 grandchildren. So, there just really isn't anything happening in her life. She was able to just drop everything, come to Iowa, and join us. So I think that makes it even more special to us that she is willing to give up her family time and her work time to be with us. So please join me in welcoming Tammy Babb.
Well, good evening, everyone. Hasn't this been a great day? Shannon and Nikki have done a fabulous job. My husband, Michael, and I are having a fantastic time. We're having a lot of fun, and we're really enjoying getting to know all of you here. I said earlier this weekend that the best thing about Rotary is that we get to meet friends all over the world. And so now I have hundreds of new friends here from District 6420 and 6450. Occasionally, as we go about our Rotary work, we have the opportunity to meet an extraordinary person, an extraordinary friend, somebody that exemplifies what Rotary is about and embodies what Rotary is about: compassion, dedication, leadership, and friendship. And tonight I have the privilege of introducing one of these extraordinary people. I have known Jennifer for a while now, and honestly, she is probably the most caring, compassionate, dedicated person I know. When I saw Jennifer walk into a room full of training leaders from all over the world wearing a flight pilot's jumpsuit and aviator glasses, I knew then that Jennifer knew how to have fun in Rotary, and she has done a lot of great things in Rotary. Jennifer is a proud member of the Rotary Club of Windsor-Roseland and is a past district governor of District 6400. She is currently the Rotary International Director-elect for Zone 28 and 29, which is this zone here. Jennifer has served on many committees at the Rotary International level, and a few of them is she chaired the Strengthening Rotary's Advisory Group, and she was North America's Rotary Public Image Coordinator. Jennifer is well known around the Rotary world, and she travels extensively doing keynote addresses. She does training workshops, and in fact, I think just last week she was in Greece, and we are so lucky to have her here tonight. Jennifer and her husband, Nick, are great supporters of the Rotary Foundation. They're Arch Clump Society members, Paul Harris Society members, and they were charter members of the Bequest Society. And these are really just a few highlights of Jennifer. I mean, she has done a lot, and so her full bio is in your program. Jennifer has been a terrific role model and a mentor and a friend to me, and she truly is a gift to Rotary and to the world. So please help me welcome my good friend, Jennifer.
Good evening, Rotarians and friends. How is everybody doing? Excellent. Well, Rotary makes the world a very small place, and I can't tell you how lucky you are to have your president's representative here, Tammy, and her husband, Mike. As you've just heard, we've been good friends for a long time, and it's been such a treat to be able to spend time with you both over the weekend while we've been here. It's really been something special for me. It's also a joy to be here with all of you tonight, and when Nikki and Shannon called and asked if I would participate and come and join in the conference, there was really, quite frankly, no way that I could say no. These are two of the brightest Rotarians that I have had the pleasure of meeting, and I consider the two of you to be very dear friends as well. So thank you so much for the kind hospitality. This weekend, we have had a chance to listen to Tammy and to Ron and to John O'Leary, And it's become abundantly clear to me that there is a thread of serendipity that's been taking place throughout all of the different comments that they've shared. Lovely threads that have been woven together in all of the messages. And, you know, we don't come prepared in planning how to weave these messages together. Something divine sometimes takes place. The message of the power of one, the why, or the power of coincidence. There's a favorite quote that I love, and it goes something like this. I don't know who to attribute it to, but there's no such thing as coincidence. It's God's way of remaining anonymous. And I think that that's something that has really woven through this entire weekend. You know, Albert Einstein, whose theories really exploded and shaped our ideas of how the universe works, is considered one of the most influential physicists of his time and one of the greatest thinkers, quite frankly, of the 20th century. And part of his charm was his disheveled look. And in addition to his uncombed hair, one of his peculiar habits was that he refused to wear socks. So whether it was out sailing on a sailboat or having dinner at the White House, Albert Einstein showed up without socks. Over his lifetime, he was quoted, and when I read the following, I thought that he may have written this for Rotary. He said, "Strive not to be of success, but to be of value." My friends, I believe this is a game-changing concept for us because if you turn that thought on its head, you can see that understanding our value is really actually truly the key to our success. It's also important that we recognize and we embrace the fact that connectivity is a great part of what our organization is all about. The enduring connections and the enduring friendships that we make with each and every one of us in this room. The rekindling of friendships while we're here together celebrating Rotary at a wonderful district conference. Connectivity. On September 11th, 2001, I was a young club president in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Who will ever forget that day? I suspect there is no one in this room who does not remember exactly where you were when the planes were hitting the trade towers in New York. It was just about 9 o'clock in the morning when I started receiving, rather after 9 o'clock, several emails from club members who were asking whether our club, which meets at noon, would be meeting. And I sat and I reflected and I thought, you know what? Yeah, we will get together. We will meet. We needed to be together in shared experience. And I'll tell you, I don't think that there was anyone who missed our meeting that day. We showed up, and as Canadians, we stood and we faced your flag, and we sang the Star-Spangled Banner with extraordinary gusto and with tears streaming down our face. We had to be together in shared experience. That is the connectivity that is Rotary. We function without borders or boundaries as an organization. And so on a day like that, there is no Canadian, there is no American, there's only us being together as human beings. A few years ago, Nick and I were assigned to be President's representative in this very district. And just prior to leaving home, I received a phone call from a friend of mine asking if we would go to a Detroit Tigers baseball game with them that weekend. And so while we were talking, I said, well, unfortunately, I can't make it. I'm going to a Rotary District Conference in Iowa. And so he reminded me of the 1989 movie, The Field of Dreams, that of course we all know took place here, right here in Iowa. It was filmed here. And as most of you probably know, it's about an Iowa corn farmer who hears voices and interprets them as a command to build a baseball diamond in his field. His name was Ray. And he does, and then like magic, the Chicago Black Sox show up. So this was the year that Ray Klingensmith was our international president, and the connection to the name Ray seemed like a perfect fit. So my friend reminded me of the scene where Ray's deceased father appears on the field and he asks, "Is this heaven?" And Ray says, "No, Dad, it's Iowa." It's actually not supposed to be a joke, but he says, "Iowa, I could have sworn this was heaven," says his father. And then Ray says, "Dad, is there a heaven?" And he says, "Oh yeah, there's a heaven. It's the place where dreams come true." And tonight I want to talk with you additionally about another place where dreams come true, and that's Rotary. For so long, and I shared this with many in the breakout session earlier today, for so long we've done our good work quietly and not for recognition. And while noble, it really has made it difficult for people to understand what our great organization is all about and what we do and why we do the work that we do. So part of what we need to do is we need to tell people our stories. We need to tell people about what it is that we do, because when they find out what we do, it's so much easier to ask them to join with us in being part of Rotary. It's actually, in my estimation, our greatest membership recruitment tool, letting people know what it is that we do. 5 years ago, my husband Nick and I, we completed one of the biggest challenges, certainly in my life. And we climbed nearly 20,000 feet to reach the top of Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, Africa. It was part personal challenge, and it was also part Rotary fundraiser. It took 5 days for us to reach the summit, and the first day was quite lovely. It was in lush tropical forest. The second day started to get a little lower into thick brush. The third day was low scrub, and the fourth day was like landing on the moon. Craters and absolutely no sign of life. Now, let me explain to you that climbing Kilimanjaro is not a technical climb like Everest. The battle with Kili is with altitude. And for me, quite frankly, it was a journey to the depths of the power of positive thinking. By the time that our team arrived at base camp at 15,000 feet, 2 of our members were exhibiting signs of mild to medium altitude sickness. And I have to admit that I was asking the question, why were we doing this? The summit is attempted at midnight, and it takes somewhere between 6 to 7 hours. And it's done at this time because the temperature drops to -20, and it freezes the gravel on the side of the mountain so you can actually get better traction. Each group is led by a team of guides, and it's a very coveted job in this area of the world because of the valuable tips that they receive. So this is where the story becomes very personal. As we set out that night with only a miner's light leading the way, I was torn by whether to feel exhilarated by this experience or terrified that something could possibly go wrong. It wouldn't be until we reached ground level that we would learn that a guide from another team had died and that a 22-year-old man from England was in cardiac arrest. As we were climbing, our guides sang Christmas songs in Swahili, and the rhythm of their music helped us to create a rhythm to our steps. Pole pole in Swahili means to go slow, and it was our mantra for the climb. So you see, the very best way to ward off altitude sickness is to stay very well hydrated and to go slow. Pole pole. I must confess, that I did enter into this perhaps a little too lightly and without a full appreciation of the dangers. But I suppose I knew them to a certain extent, but I was excited by the adventure, and I was very eager to reach the top of the African continent. It seemed like we had been climbing for absolute ever when our guide shared with us that we were only a quarter of the way to the top. Just as a side note, if this is on your bucket list, take it off. And I am serious. It was also at this point that we recognized and realized that our water bags, while insulated inside of our jackets, had already frozen. It took every single ounce inside of my being to stay positive and to stay focused and to put one foot in front of the other. Inside, I was questioning why on earth was I on the side of this mountain, and I had to dig really deep to stay positive. I was ready to throw in the towel countless times, but to what end? There was no easy way out. The last hour was the most difficult, and it required a lot of technical rock climbing. And it was just as the sun was peaking above the horizon that we reached the top. And this sky transitioned from this thick carpet of stars to this beautiful tapestry of orange. It was incredible. I tell you this story because it's about climbing to great heights. And isn't Rotary a story that we should be standing on the top of a mountain and screaming out what we do, telling people about our great work? Good public relations and showcasing the relevancy of our organization is about telling our stories. I also see this climb as a metaphor for life and about how we frame the things that are important to us. What are the stories in your own lives, in your own clubs, in your own districts? How can you tell them? Because each one of us has great stories to share. A couple of years ago, I participated in a Rotaplast mission. Rota for Rotary, Plast for plastic surgery. And as a team of 25, we traveled to a small city in Venezuela, there to do cleft lip and cleft palate surgeries. And so we were there for about 10 days, and we set up a surgical schedule, and had about 100 people, 100 young children who would be coming through during the course of our time there to provide surgery. On the second last day of our mission there was a young fisherman and his wife who came in asking for help for their beautiful little 11-month-old baby. The schedule had been set, and there was truly no room for their child. They had traveled 14 hours by broken-down bus, by car, by foot, all to get there to hear that there was no room. And then a small miracle, a Rotary miracle happened, and a window of time opened up. And we waited in the post-op area with this young mom and dad, waiting for their little bundle of joy to come back into their arms. And when they brought the baby back out and placed her in her mother's arms, through a translator, she looked up and she looked directly into my eyes. And she said, "I have always thought that my baby was beautiful, but now the rest of the world can see what I see." That we have the opportunity, the willingness, the tools, the time and the talent to be able to go and participate in projects like this. That is the gift of Rotary, and that is how we truly change lives. This morning, John talked about his friend Jack, journaling about John's experience. As I reflected upon that and thought about it a little bit this afternoon, I thought that it was probably the only way that he could probably cope with the enormity of the situation of this young man. It made me think of a a journal that I wanted to be able to write in myself. And it was a few years ago. My husband Nick and I, we were in Chicago visiting my brother who lives there. And the only thing that I wanted to get while I was there was a gratitude journal. And some of you may remember this was sort of an Oprah-led phenomenon about 8 or 9 years ago, that you would write down 3 things a day that you were grateful for. I thought this was a really good idea, and hearkening back to the whole notion of the power of positive thinking, I thought, you know what, I'm going to get a gratitude journal. This is what I'm going to buy when I'm in Chicago. So we were in this beautiful little boutique, and I looked down on the floor in a basket, and there was this beautiful tapestry-covered book. And I opened it up, and lo and behold, the pages were empty. And so I went over and I put it on the counter, and I went back to Nick, and very quietly I said, "That's my gratitude journal." So I looked around the shop a little bit more, and it was finally time to pay. And so I went over to the counter, and the clerk took my book, and he walked down to one end of the counter, and he found this beautiful tissue paper, and he spent a whole bunch of time wrapping it up like that. And then he walked down to the other end of the counter, down here, and he found this beautiful blue box with gold lines running through it. And then he came back to the middle, and he put this beautiful bow on this. And then he looked at me and he said, "I couldn't help but overhear what you said, that this is going to be your gratitude journal. I want to be the first entry in your book. I want you to write that the man who sold you this book took the time to make it an even more beautiful experience. He indeed is the first entry in my book." And a really good pickle was number 2. Because sometimes a good pickle just is something that makes me happy, so it just had to be. Anyway, but how do we frame the things that are important to us? What are the special ribbons that we put on Rotary to make people know how special we are? We do it by telling our stories. I think the words that will stick with me the most from this morning is, "What more can I do?" And appreciating that even the most simple of our actions can change lives. The effect on a little baby in Venezuela, or on a big burly nurse named Roy. As I conclude, I'd like to take you back to the movie The Field of Dreams and fill you in on the rest of the story. I started out by saying coincidence is something that has run through this conference. The weekend following our time here in Iowa, we attended a district conference in Harrison Springs, British Columbia. I was really liking this whole Ray connection with the name of the guy in the movie and our president, and thought, I vacillated on how could I incorporate this into my talk while I was there without sounding like I was duplicating something that didn't have any meaning to them. They were an international district, and over the course of the weekend, I have to say, it was hockey mania. They had TVs on everywhere, and there was hockey going on. It was, I guess, probably close to the semifinals or the Stanley Cup at some point. So it struck me that perhaps I could bring up baseball and Iowa as a way of paying tribute to our American friends who were at the conference. I gave my speech that night, and when I was done, 2 men came screaming up to the stage, yelling, "When did you write this speech? When did you write this speech?" And I was really taken aback. And I said, "Well, gosh, I wrote parts, for the past couple of weeks. I've written some parts of it while I've been here to reflect on things, but it's sort of been a little bit of a journey into itself." And then one of the men, he looked at me and he said, "Do you have any idea who was here today at the conference?" I didn't. He said, W.P. Kinsella, the author of the book Shoeless Joe Jackson, who, as we probably most all have now figured out, it's the book that was what A Field of Dreams was based on. The author was in the room. How could this be? Coincidence? I think not. That's part of the magic of Rotary. The 1 degree of separation that joins us all. As I close, I want to share a final passage from the character that was played by James Earl Jones. And as I share this with you, I would like you to replace baseball, the concept of baseball, with Rotary. He said, "People will come, Ray. They'll come for reasons they can't even fathom. They'll arrive at your door as innocent children, longing for the past. Of course, we won't mind if you look around, you say, and they'll find that they have reserved seats somewhere along the baselines where they cheered their heroes when they were young. And they'll watch the game, and it will be as if they've been dipped in the magic waters. One constant through all the years has been baseball. It reminds us of all that was once good and could be again. People most definitely will come. We, my friends, have reserved seats along the baseline of the greatest organization in the world, and you are here at a district conference like this because you have dipped in the magic waters. I'd like to leave you with one of my absolute favorite quotes, and it's by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He says, "Everyone has the power for greatness, not for fame, but for greatness, because greatness is determined by service." Now it is our collective job to go out, to tell our story, to light up Rotary, and of course move forward and be a gift to the world. Thank you so much for your kind attention.